In this lesson, we are going to be talking about indefinites and interrogatives. Indefinites are just a fancy word for pronouns that are not specific. So if you were to say someone or something or no one or nothing or anyone or anything, those are all pronouns that aren't specific and are classed as indefinites. Interrogatives are just words that introduce questions. And you might ask, okay, why am I doing this in one video? These are very different things. Interrogatives are very different to indefinites. I'm doing it in one video because oudes and tis, the words that we will be discussing, are, well, oudes is an indefinite, and tis can be an indefinite and an interrogative based on whether it has an accent, and I'll explain more about that later. So first of all, we are going to be discussing oudes. So oudes, as I've just said, is a indefinite. It can mean no one, none, or nothing. So has a variety of uses which we will be going into. So it's basically a 3-1-3. It's 3-1-3 in form, which means its masculine goes like a third declension noun, as does its neuter, while the feminine goes like a first declension noun. And you'll see why it's called that in a second. So if we just write out the different forms, so masculine, feminine, neuter. So the masculine, get oudes, and then ouden is the stem, so then oudena, oudenos, oudeni. We've just covered third declension noun, so that should be pretty good in your memory. Oudes is obviously the nominative that can be anything, and the stem is ouden, and then the endings are a, os, e. And then feminine is like first declension noun. It goes oudemia, oudemian, oudemias, oudemi. So that's, well, just like a first declension noun. In the nominative, in the neuter, we get ouden, oudenos, oudeni. And again, as usual, nominative accusatives are the same. And again, the stem is identical to that of the masculine. You might wonder why we've only got singular here and no plural. Well, the answer is that how can you have a plural form of a word that means nothing, or none, or no one? It just doesn't work. We will now be discussing the uses of oudes. Firstly, it can be used as an indefinite pronoun to mean no one or nothing. So no one or nothing. And this is when it's used as a pronoun. That's when it's used as a pronoun. So let's say you were to have, let's give the example. I admire no one. That's going to be Udina, thou Mazda. I admire no one. And you've got Udina in the accusative. And that's obviously if this is a masculine person. Udina, no one, masculine. So that could also be translated as I admire no man. If it was I admire no woman, that would of course be Udemian, so the feminine form. So that's one use. The second use is when it's used as an adjective describing a noun. Right? That's basically the definition of an adjective. Let's say you wanted to say, no girl was releasing the horse. No girl was releasing the horse. Well, this no is agreeing with girl, right? These two words go together. And girl, in this case, is the subject of the sentence. So you know that no has to agree with girl in case, number, or gender. So it's going to be u, de, mia, the feminine, the nominative feminine. Ludemia, Cora, ton hippon, eluen. Okay? So, obviously, this agrees with that. But there's one more use that I want us to discuss, and that is if it's used along with the genitive. So along with the genitive. I think this is shown clearly by the sentence, none of the slaves are wise. So let's say you wanted to write this into Greek. Well, none would basically have to go into, none is here the subject of the sentence, so that's just going to be oudes. And it's of the slaves, so then that's going to be ton doulon. None of the slaves. It's translated exactly how it is in English. None of the slaves are wise. And then this we obviously know how to do. None of the slaves. I mean, we say none of the slaves are wise, but in Greek, that's obviously going to be a singular verb because none, that's not plural, is it? So, estin. Oudes ton doulon, sophos estin. None of the slaves are wise. It's easy as that. So, just to recap, we have three main uses: as an indefinite but with the genitive, and finally as a sort of negative adjective. You're now going to move on to discussing tis or tis. So as I said, the accent here determines the meaning of this word. So tis, without the accent on the iota, means a certain or someone or something. Someone, something, or just some. While tis with an accent means who, what, or which, i.e., it's an interrogative. Whereas that is a pronoun, an indefinite pronoun. Okay. So they go exactly the same. Pretty much the only difference, in fact, the only difference between them is this accent. In fact, let me write that in a separate colour to make that abundantly clear. That is the difference. Tis with an accent, who, what, which, an interrogative. Tis without an accent means a certain someone or something. So let's now give you the full how it declines. In fact, you know what? Let's do it in green. So the masculine, feminine go the same, and then you have the neuter going a bit differently. Tis is tina, tinos, tini, tines. In fact, let me write that again so I don't have enough space. Tini, tines, tinas, tinon, tissy. And then the neuter goes t, tinos, tini, tina, tinos, tissy. Obviously, the top is singular, the bottom is neuter. So this goes like a third declension noun. So this is 3-3. The masculine and feminine both go like third declension nouns, as does the neuter. So as I said, remember, the nominative can be anything. And then the stem is the same for the rest. So the stem here is tin, 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 tin. And then this one obviously makes a spelling change, but it's the equivalent of just tinsy, which doesn't sound good. So Greek eradicates the new. And it's the same endings. A, os, e, es, as, on, c. So hopefully you are very familiar. And then as usual, for the neuter, nominative and accusative are the same. A. And then for the rest, it's the same.